Welcome to the Coach Hughes Show. It's week 2 in the football season, and we're gearing up for a game against Winona State on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Coach, your team suffered a tough loss Thursday, but they fought back well after Zach Cunha went down with the injury. What are some positives that we can take away from the game last week?
Well, a few things. I think for one, we were able to get the ball into our playmakers' hands, which was an important thing. I think anytime offensively you go into a game or a season, you want to make sure that your playmakers are involved. Players make plays, and for coaches, that's a challenge all the time. Is just making sure that we identify what guys can do and get those guys in the right spot. So, Porter Sturm, Akil Walker, they made some great plays in the passing game. That was good to see. I think defensively, our pursuit was really good. That also led to a strong tackling effort. Other than just a couple of plays, I felt like our tackling was very good. So, in all, our effort from our players was strong. That was certainly a positive thing. We got to get better getting off the field on third down, and that relates mostly to penalties. If we can be better that way, we're going to be in really good shape.
You mentioned Porter, who had 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's a pretty good game for him. People kind of come to expect that from him, a guy that's been a 4-year starter now. But Akil Walker kind of surprises some people with, I think, 6 receptions, 95 yards, and a couple carries for good gains. Did that surprise your coaching staff? Was that something that you had planned on giving him the ball?
Yeah, no, we knew about Akil going in, of course. Akil had a really good spring. He was a guy that started to really develop for us last fall. But he was playing behind Glenn Burrell, who was one of our top receivers, and so Akil didn't get a lot of playing time. But we knew that he was a guy that was going to develop and be a really good player for us as we went through the spring and headed into the fall. So he's a guy that was very raw and underdeveloped when he first came into the program and got here to Winona State, and he's also a guy who's worked very, very hard. And so, as I've mentioned before to others, his ceiling is very high. He still has a lot of room to improve. But as everyone saw, he's a good football player, and he's going to be a big part of what we do going forward.
On your defensive side, guys like Isaiah Steinwand and Trevin Swenson led your team in 13 tackles. Steinwand's been here a couple years, hasn't put up great numbers, and then Trevin Swenson's new to the team this year. Did you expect that going in for those two to just lead your team right away?
Well, I think for Trevin's part, he had, been a starter since spring ball. I mean, he's been in the mix, since the day he got here, basically. He was a junior college transfer, got here in January. So I don't think it was very surprising to see his productivity. He's been a productive player as long as I've known him. I had recruited him out of high school to Snow College. I actually did not coach him there because that's, when I had left. But we recruited him in high school. We knew he was productive then. He was an All-American at Snow. I mean, he's been a really good football player every stop that he's had. So for that, I don't think anybody was, very surprised that way. He had a great camp. He's a team captain. Guys respect him. So Trevin's a very good football player. And then for Isaiah, heading into the week, he was a 2, and he became a starter on Sunday, basically. 4 or 5 days or whatever it was before the game. And Isaiah's a guy that's been in the program for a long time. He's a program kid. He works hard. He does whatever we ask him to do. He played a very, very good football game. He played a lot of snaps, almost 100 snaps between defense and special teams. And he was on the field a ton of reps and did a really good job with it. And he definitely earned himself more opportunity going forward based on the way that he played and performed, particularly on a short week and with the amount of reps that he did take. He did a really nice job.
You mentioned team captains. Those were announced this week. How important is it for your team to have those leaders, both on offense and defense, come together?
Well, it's critical. One thing that we've talked about with our team frequently, over the past year is you have to have great internal leadership. If you don't have guys in the program that are leading the charge, amongst the players, it doesn't really matter how good of coaches you are or how many great plays you draw up. What really counts is having great internal leadership, and we've emphasized that for a long time. I've talked to our players about that over and over and over again. I feel like the guys who the team voted as team captains are guys who believe in the need to have internal leadership. They've taken ownership in the program. They're good in terms of being a good example guys to others and helping the young players learn the ropes and what they need to do. But also, more than that, they're really concerned about leaving this program better than they found it, and helping propel the program and others to be better than where they're currently at. And I think that's a real key measurement of leadership, is guys who elevate the play and the commitment of those around them. So that's what we have with those guys. I think they're going to be very good captains. I'm excited to work with them. I think they're very deserving. And I think the last thing I'd mention about captains too is that, captain vote is based on a peer vote. It's not selected by me or the other coaches. It's based on the player vote. And for that, I feel like it's the greatest award or recognition that any player can ever get, because it's from their peer group, not from, a selected panel or coaches or media or anything like that. And so there's a lot of respect involved in that, and a lot of responsibility as well. So again, I'm excited about these guys. I think they're going to do very, very well, and they're good program guys.
Going into this week against Winona State, you talked about mistakes last post game. What are some things that you need to do, your team needs to do, to correct those mistakes?
Well, the biggest thing the guys just need to understand is how to play within the moment and play with a little more poise. We've talked a lot about just the responsibility that when you make a great play, celebrate it like crazy, but celebrate it with your teammates, and do it within the rules. And I think the guys just got excited and stepped out of those lines obviously too many times. I think there was a little bit too much back and forth between our team and theirs, and our team and maybe officials. And ultimately, these guys just need to focus on doing their job and get less involved in the back and forth conversations that go on in the game. And that's just a big issue. And then the other thing, we did have a couple of, we had a pre-snap penalty. We had 12 guys on the field, and we just had other things that were just kind of mental breakdowns. And again, there were a bunch of them. It's not one single issue. It's not one single player. There was a variety of issues, and we've talked about those as a team. The guys just need to recognize that it's really difficult to win a football game, and makes it even more difficult when you do things to beat yourself, particularly when you're playing a great opponent. And that's something certainly we need to improve going forward.
Winona State is coming off a loss this week as well. They lost 17-42 to MSU Moorhead, but they gained almost 500 yards offensively. What does your defense need to do to slow down their offensive attack?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, they were really productive in terms of moving the ball. They had left some points on the table because they had turnovers early on in the game, turnovers in the red zone, and then they had got behind, and so they got into some third and long situations that they weren't able to convert on. And so, given that, they were very productive, and we know we're going to have a tough matchup ahead. They run the ball well. They've got good receivers. They've got an experienced offensive line, and they got a lot of things going for them. They got a quarterback that's played a bunch of games. And so given all that, it's going to be a tough task ahead. For us, defensively, we need to do things similar to what we did last week in terms of our gap control and making sure all 11 are connected and playing well together in terms of, again, gap control and the coverages and all the calls and checks. We do that, we'll be okay. As I mentioned earlier, our pursuit was really good against Southwest. It's going to need to be even better this week. We just got to get around the ball and get 11 Winona State football players to the football, and we can play with that kind of effort and attitude. We'll eliminate big plays and hopefully force some turnovers along the way.
Their defense allowed over 200 yards rushing, but they also allowed 5 passing TDs. Is there something that you're going to try to exploit this week, or is it just, this is our offense, we're going to do what we do and come in and try to win the game?
Well, yeah, you always look at the film and try to determine, maybe where you have some opportunities, maybe whether it be personnel or schematics. You try to identify the strengths of the other team, and of course, you don't shy away from all those, but you certainly don't want to go right into the lion's den, so to speak. So, you're going to try to identify anything that you can do to be productive. Offensively last week, I think we were very good. I think where we had some missed opportunities was that defensively we would stay on the field on those third and fourth downs we had talked about. And I think if we had given our offense a few more opportunities, I think we would have seen them be even more productive. So I like where we're at offensively. As I mentioned also, I think we found ways to get the ball into our playmakers' hands. So we got to do that again. And, our offense, we want to be balanced. We want to be able to run and throw it. So we'll look to do that this week.
Like I mentioned before, they'll take on Winona State this Saturday at 1 p.m. Good luck this week, Coach.
Yeah, thanks
for coming on.
You betcha.